The blood-red sun sank behind the distant mesas as Tabitha Wells clutched her swollen belly and hurried down the dusty main street of Copper Ridge, Arizona Territory, 1878, desperately trying to ignore the whispers that followed her like vengeful spirits. There she goes, the cursed one. Heard her baby's father was killed by Apaches. No, fool, she ain't never said who the father is, probably don't know herself. Tabitha pulled her shawl tighter around her shoulders, quickening her pace despite the ache in her lower back. At 22 years old, she'd grown accustomed to the cruelty of Copper Ridge, but that didn't make it hurt any less. 6 months pregnant and alone, she had nowhere else to go. Her parents' small homestead at the edge of town was the only home she'd ever known, and after they died of fever last winter, she'd been left to fend for herself. The general store's bell jingled as she entered, and conversation instantly died. Mrs. Holloway, the proprietor's wife, nudged her husband sharply with her elbow. "Miss Wells," Mr. Holloway said stiffly. "What can I do for you today?" Tabitha placed a small list on the counter. "Just the essentials, please, and I've brought eggs to trade." She set down a small basket of fresh eggs from her 3 remaining hens. Mr. Holloway examined the eggs with exaggerated care. "These'll only cover half your list." "But last week, prices have gone up," Mrs. Holloway cut in, not bothering to hide her disdain. "Times are hard for everyone." Tabitha bit her lip. "Then just flour, coffee, and salt, please." As Mr. Holloway gathered her meager supplies, the door swung open with such force that it banged against the wall. A tall stranger stood silhouetted against the fading daylight. Dust covered his denim pants and leather vest, and a worn Stetson cast shadows across his face. He stepped inside, revealing a strong jawline shadowed with several days' worth of beard. "Afternoon," he said, his voice deep and graveled from trail dust. "Name's Finnian Ryder." "Looking for Sheriff Tate." "Down at the jailhouse," Mr. Holloway replied, suddenly animated. "You the new deputy we've been expecting?" The stranger Finnian nodded once. "Came from Tucson. Sheriff Briggs recommended me." His gaze swept the store, pausing briefly when it reached Tabitha. His eyes, startlingly blue against his sun-bronzed skin, flickered to her swollen belly before returning to her face. Tabitha looked away first, uncomfortable with his direct gaze. She gathered her purchases, carefully tucking them into her basket alongside the remaining eggs. "You need help carrying that?" Finnian asked, the question catching her off guard. Before she could answer, Mrs. Holloway interjected, "Don't waste your time with her, deputy. That one's trouble." Finnian's expression didn't change. "I believe I asked the lady, not you." The store fell silent. Tabitha's cheeks burned. "I can manage, thank you," she murmured, then hurried past him and out the door. The setting sun cast long shadows as Tabitha made her way home. The small homestead stood a quarter-mile outside town, close enough for necessity, far enough to avoid constant scrutiny. As she approached the weathered cabin, she noticed something amiss. The door stood slightly ajar, her heart pounded. She'd locked it, she was certain. "Hello," she called, setting her basket down on the porch. "Is someone there?" Silence answered her. Taking a deep breath, she pushed the door open wider. The interior was dim, but she could make out upturned furniture and scattered belongings. Someone had ransacked her home. A floorboard creaked behind her. Tabitha whirled around, coming face to face with Clyde Wheaton, the local saloon owner's son, a young man known for his mean streak. "Looking for something?" he sneered, blocking her exit. "Get out of my house, Clyde," she demanded, trying to keep her voice steady. He laughed, a cruel sound. "Not until you tell me where it is. Pa says your daddy had gold hidden away. That's why those Indians killed him, wasn't it? My parents died of fever. There's no gold. Now leave." Clyde stepped closer. "Maybe I need to search more thoroughly." His gaze traveled down to her belly. "Though I gotta wonder whose bastard you're carrying. Could be anyone's in town." Tabitha backed away, her hands protectively covering her stomach. "That's none of your business." "Maybe I'll make it my business," he said, reaching for her arm. The sound of a gun being cocked froze them both. "Step away from the lady." Finnian Ryder stood in the doorway, his revolver leveled at Clyde's chest. Now, Clyde's face drained of color. "This ain't your concern, deputy. Breaking and entering, threatening a woman that makes it exactly my concern." Finnian's voice was calm, but his eyes were hard as flint. "Out, now. And if I hear you've been anywhere near Miss Wells or her property again, you'll be spending a long time in Sheriff Tate's jail." After Clyde slunk away, Finnian holstered his weapon and surveyed the damage. "You all right, madam?" Tabitha nodded, trembling slightly. "Thank you, but how did you saw you heading this way? Thought I'd make sure you got home safe." He bent down to right an overturned chair. "Folks in town don't seem too friendly toward you." "That's putting it mildly," she said, attempting a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Finnian worked in silence for a few minutes, helping restore order to the small cabin. "Mind if I ask why?" Tabitha's hand went instinctively to her belly. "Isn't it obvious? An unmarried woman expecting a child, that's hardly cause for the kind of treatment I witnessed," she sighed, sinking into the righted chair. "There's more to it than that. They think I'm cursed. Bad things happen around me, they say. What kind of bad things? My parents dying. The drought that killed half the crops last summer, a few cattle mysteriously disappearing from the Henderson ranch." She gave a bitter laugh. "If someone stubs their toe in Copper Ridge, somehow it's Tabitha Wells' fault." Finnian's expression was unreadable as he studied her. "Superstitious nonsense, perhaps, but it's powerful nonsense in a town like this." She hesitated. "You should probably go. Your reputation will suffer if you're seen helping me." "I don't much care what people think," he replied, continuing to straighten the room. "Never have." For the first time in months, Tabitha felt a small spark of something like hope. She watched as this stranger, this unexpected ally, moved around her humble home with confident efficiency, his broad shoulders and capable hands making quick work of the chaos Clyde had created. "Why are you really helping me?" she asked finally. Finnian paused, considering her question. "My ma raised me to believe that how we treat those who can't defend themselves shows our true character." He glanced at her belly. "Besides, I've got nothing against new life coming into this world. Seems to me that baby of yours deserves a fair chance, same as anyone." As darkness fell, Finnian lit the lamps and helped Tabitha prepare a simple meal. They ate together in companionable silence, and when he finally left with a promise to check on her the next day, Tabitha bolted the door behind him and leaned against it, wondering what twist of fate had brought Finnian Ryder to Copper Ridge and into her life. The following weeks brought changes to Tabitha's quiet existence. True to his word, Finnian checked on her regularly, often bringing small gifts, fresh meat from a successful hunt, a new blanket for the coming baby, books to pass the long evenings. The townspeople watched with disapproving eyes, but Finnian paid them no mind. One evening in late September, as golden light filtered through the cottonwoods surrounding Tabitha's cabin, she sat on the porch mending a shirt while Finnian chopped firewood for the approaching winter. "You don't have to do all this," she said, watching as he swung the axe with practiced ease. He paused, wiping sweat from his brow. "I know." "Then why do you?" Finnian set the axe down and came to sit beside her on the porch steps. "Can I speak plainly, Miss Wells? After all you've done, I think you've earned the right to call me Tabitha." He smiled, the expression transforming his usually serious face. "Tabitha, then. The truth is, I came to Copper Ridge running from something." She set her mending aside. "What were you running from?" "Memories, mostly." "I was married once back in Texas." His voice grew softer. "Sarah and I tried for years to have a child. When she finally conceived, we were overjoyed, but there were complications." He trailed off, staring into the distance. "I'm so sorry," Tabitha whispered. "Lost them both." The baby, a little girl, and Sarah within hours of each other. His hands, strong and capable, now hung limply between his knees. "Afterward, I couldn't stay there. Too many reminders. So I drifted, took work where I could find it. Ended up wearing a badge because I'm good with a gun and don't scare easy." Tabitha reached out hesitantly, placing her hand on his arm. "And now, Now I'm here, watching a town turn its back on a woman carrying new life, the very miracle I prayed for and lost." He turned to look at her, his blue eyes intense. "When I first saw you in that store, something inside me just knew. You carrying that child, it's not a curse. It's the miracle I've been waiting for." The unexpected words hung in the air between them. Tabitha's heart pounded as she processed what he was saying. "Finnian, I'm not asking anything of you," he said quickly. "I just wanted you to understand why I can't stand by and watch them treat you this way. Every child deserves to be welcomed into this world with love, not suspicion and cruelty." Before Tabitha could respond, a sharp pain lanced through her abdomen. She gasped, clutching her belly. "What is it?" Finnian asked, alarm evident in his voice. "I don't know." "It's too early," she said through gritted teeth. Another wave of pain hit her, stronger than the first. "Something's wrong." Without hesitation, Finnian gathered her into his arms and carried her inside, laying her gently on the bed. "I'll fetch the doctor." "No," Tabitha grabbed his wrist. "Doctor. Martin won't come. He refused me weeks ago, said he wouldn't attend a cursed birth." Finnian's expression darkened. "Then I'll find someone who will help." "There's Mrs. Blackwood," Tabitha gasped as another pain gripped her. "The midwife outside town, but she's 3 miles away near the creek." "I'll be back with her as quick as I can," Finnian promised, squeezing her hand. "Hold on, Tabitha." As he rushed out, Tabitha curled around her belly, whispering soothing words to the child within. "Hold on, little one. It's too soon for you to come. Please wait." The hours that followed were a blur of pain and fear. Mrs. Blackwood arrived with Finnian just before midnight, her weathered face grim as she examined Tabitha. "False labor," she pronounced finally. "But something's not right. You need to stay abed for a few weeks, girl. This baby's fighting to stay put, but your body's trying to push it out too soon." Finnian paced outside the bedroom as Mrs. Blackwood prepared herbal teas and tinctures. When she emerged, she fixed him with a stern look. "She needs constant care, can't be left alone." "I'll stay," Finnian said without hesitation. Mrs. Blackwood raised an eyebrow. "That'll set tongues wagging even more than they already are." "Let them wag. I'm not leaving her to face this alone." The old midwife nodded approvingly. "Good man, I'll be back tomorrow with more herbs. Meanwhile, keep her calm and make sure she drinks plenty of that tea." After Mrs. Blackwood left, Finnian brought a chair into the bedroom and sat beside Tabitha's bed. She was pale, her auburn hair spread across the pillow like a fan of autumn leaves. "You should go," she murmured. "Your job, Sheriff Tate can manage without me for a while." He dipped a cloth in cool water and placed it on her forehead. "Rest now, I'll be right here." Tabitha's eyes filled with tears. "Why are you doing this? The truth, please." Finnian was quiet for a long moment. "Because from the moment I saw you, I felt something I thought had died with Sarah. A purpose, a reason to stop drifting." He took her hand gently. "I don't expect anything from you, Tabitha, but I want to help you and your child if you'll let me," the baby's father. She began hesitantly. "You don't owe me any explanations." "No, but I want you to know." She took a deep breath. "His name was Thomas. He was passing through town last year, a geologist surveying for the railroad. We fell in love quickly, too quickly, perhaps. He promised to return and marry me, but what happened? His last letter said he was coming back in April. He never arrived. I later heard there was an Apache raid on a survey party. I believe he was killed." Her voice broke. "I didn't know I was expecting until after the news came." Finnian's thumb traced circles on the back of her hand. "I'm sorry, Tabitha." The town assumed the worst, that I'd been improper with multiple men, or that I'd lain with someone else's husband. The rumors spread faster than I could counter them." She sighed. "And then, when the drought came and other misfortunes followed, it was easy to blame the woman already carrying shame." "There's no shame in loving someone," Finnian said firmly, "and there's certainly no shame in bringing their child into the world." For the first time in months, Tabitha felt the heavy burden of judgment lift slightly from her shoulders. She squeezed Finnian's hand. "Thank you for that." As September gave way to October, Tabitha remained confined to bed under Mrs. Blackwood's strict orders. Finnian rarely left her side, returning to town only for supplies and to check in with Sheriff Tate. The arrangement caused predictable outrage in Copper Ridge. Sheriff Tate himself rode out one crisp morning, his weathered face grave as he dismounted outside Tabitha's cabin. "Finn," he greeted as Finnian stepped onto the porch. "Need a word. Something wrong at the jail, it's not about the job." Tate removed his hat, turning it in his hands. "It's about you staying out here with the Wells girl." Finnian crossed his arms. "What about it?" "Town council's in an uproar. Reverend Simmons is talking about moral corruption. They're threatening to demand your badge if you don't cease this impropriety, as they put it." "Let them demand it. I'll hand it over myself if that's what it takes." Tate sighed. "Figured you'd say that." "Look, I don't give two hoots about gossip, but if you lose your position, you lose your income. How'll you help the girl then?" Finnian hadn't considered this. "What do you suggest?" "Marry her," Tate said bluntly. "If you're determined to stand by her, make it proper. That'll shut them up." After Tate left, Finnian sat on the porch steps for a long time, turning the suggestion over in his mind. The idea wasn't unwelcome, far from it, but would Tabitha see it as just another burden, another man making decisions about her life? Inside, Tabitha had heard enough of the conversation to understand the situation. As Finnian finally came back inside, she spoke before he could. "You should go back to town, resume your duties. I'll be fine on my own." Finnian poured himself a cup of coffee. "Not happening. I won't be responsible for you losing your position. It's just a job, Tabitha. It's your livelihood." She struggled to sit up straighter in bed. "And I won't have you sacrifice it for me out of some misplaced sense of obligation." Finnian set his cup down hard enough that coffee sloshed over the rim. "Is that what you think this is? Obligation? What else could it be? You barely know me." He crossed the room in 3 strides, sitting on the edge of her bed. "I know enough. I know you're brave and stubborn and kinder than anyone in that town deserves. I know you talk to your unborn child every night when you think I'm asleep, telling stories about the father they'll never meet. I know you're terrified but facing each day anyway." Tabitha's eyes widened. "Finnian, I'm not finished." His voice softened. "I know that being here with you is the first time since Sarah died that I've felt like I'm where I'm supposed to be, the first time I've wanted to put down roots instead of running." Tears spilled down Tabitha's cheeks. "I can't ask you to take on another man's child. You're not asking, I'm offering." He took her hand. "Marry me, Tabitha, not because the town demands it, but because I think we could build something good together, something real. You can't possibly love me already. Maybe not in the way poetry describes, not yet, but I care for you deeply, and I believe love can grow from respect and friendship." He squeezed her hand. "We can wait if you prefer. I'll find another way to make ends meet if they take my badge. But know that my offer stands, with no expectations beyond what you're willing to give." Tabitha studied his face, the earnest blue eyes, the strong lines softened by compassion. In the weeks he'd been caring for her, she'd come to rely on his steady presence, his quiet strength. Was it so impossible that those feelings could deepen into love? "I need time to think," she said finally. Finnian nodded. "Take all the time you need." 2 days later, Mrs. Blackwood pronounced Tabitha stable enough to move around the cabin, though still not to exert herself. That evening, as they shared a simple dinner, Tabitha cleared her throat. "I've been thinking about your proposal." Finnian set down his fork, giving her his full attention. "If we were to marry," she continued carefully, "would you want more children? Children of your own blood, I mean." His expression softened. "I would welcome any children we might have together. But Tabitha, this child you're carrying," he gestured to her rounded belly, "would be mine in every way that matters. Not by blood, perhaps, but by choice. Sometimes that's the stronger bond." Tabitha nodded slowly. "And if I can't have more children, if there were complications with this birth, then we would be a family of 3, and I would count myself blessed." He reached across the table, taking her hand. "I'm not asking you to replace Sarah, and I don't expect to replace Thomas. But perhaps we can build something new together, something that honors what we've lost while embracing what might be." Tears filled Tabitha's eyes. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'll marry you, Finnian Ryder." The following Sunday with Mrs. Blackwood and Sheriff Tate as witnesses, Reverend Simmons reluctantly performed a brief ceremony in Tabitha's cabin. The Reverend made no effort to hide his disapproval, rushing through the vows and departing immediately afterward. "Not exactly the wedding every girl dreams of," Tabitha said wryly as the door closed behind him. Finnian smiled, taking her hand where a simple gold band now rested. "We can have another ceremony later if you like, something with flowers and music when you're stronger." This was perfect, she assured him. Simple and honest like us. As November arrived with its biting winds and occasional dustings of snow, Tabitha's condition stabilized. The threat of early labor subsided, though Mrs. Blackwood still advised caution. Finnian had indeed lost his deputy position, but Sheriff Tate quietly hired him to handle paperwork and night watches tasks that allowed him to spend most of his time at home with Tabitha. One cold afternoon, as Tabitha sat by the window quilting baby clothes, a wagon appeared on the road to their cabin. She recognized the Hendersons' farm wagon with old Mr. Henderson himself at the reins. "Finnian," she called, "we have visitors." Finnian stepped out onto the porch as the wagon pulled up, his hand resting casually near his holstered revolver. "Mr. Henderson," the old rancher nodded. "Ryder." He glanced toward the window where Tabitha sat. "Mrs. Ryder." The formal acknowledgement of her married status surprised Tabitha. She set aside her quilting and joined Finnian on the porch, wrapping a shawl around her shoulders. "What brings you out this way, Mr. Henderson?" she asked. The old man shifted uncomfortably. "Came to deliver something." He gestured to the wagon bed, where Tabitha now saw several crates of vegetables, a sack of flour, and what appeared to be a handcrafted wooden cradle. "Martha, Mrs. Henderson thought you might need these things. For the baby." Tabitha exchanged a bewildered glance with Finnian. The Hendersons had been among the first to shun her when her pregnancy became known. "That's very kind," Finnian said cautiously, "but may I ask what prompted this generosity?" Henderson cleared his throat. "Found out what really happened to our missing cattle wasn't no curse," he scowled. "Was the Wheaton boy and his friends rustling them and selling them across the territory line. Sheriff caught them red-handed yesterday." "I see," Finnian said, his expression neutral. "Folks been saying a lot of things that maybe ain't true," Henderson continued, not meeting their eyes. "About curses and such. Martha says we been unfair to you, Mrs. Ryder, says we owe you an apology." Tabitha felt Finnian's hand come to rest supportively at the small of her back. "Thank you, Mr. Henderson. The supplies are most welcome." The old rancher nodded, still uncomfortable. "There's more. Reverend Simmons is organizing what Martha call it, a welcoming circle for the baby, ladies bringing gifts and such. Said to tell you it'll be at the church hall next Sunday if you're feeling up to it." After Henderson left, Tabitha stood frozen on the porch, trying to process this unexpected turn of events. "Are you all right?" Finnian asked gently. "I don't know," she admitted. "After all this time being treated like I carried the plague to suddenly be welcomed." She shook her head. "It doesn't feel real. People can change their minds when confronted with the truth, or when they need to save face." Tabitha sighed. "I don't know if I can forgive them so easily." Finnian pulled her close, his chin resting on top of her head. "You don't have to decide today, we have time." Over the following weeks, the change in the town's attitude was remarkable. What began with Henderson's visit became a steady stream of neighbors bringing gifts, offering help, and extending awkward apologies. Dr. Martin himself came to check on Tabitha, his manner professional if not particularly warm. "The child seems healthy," he pronounced after examining her. "Another month, perhaps a bit more," Tabitha nodded, relief flooding through her. After so many months of worry, to hear that her baby was thriving felt like a miracle. As December arrived with a rare snowfall that blanketed the Arizona landscape in pristine white, Tabitha and Finnian settled into a rhythm of shared domesticity that felt increasingly natural. They talked long into the evenings about their pasts, their hopes, their fears. Finnian spoke of Sarah with a gentle sadness that was healing rather than raw, and Tabitha shared memories of Thomas that she'd kept locked away for too long. "I think they would approve, don't you?" she asked one night as they lay in bed, Finnian's hand resting protectively over her belly where the baby kicked vigorously. "Sarah and Thomas, of us finding each other." "I do," Finnian murmured, pressing a kiss to her temple. "I believe they would want us to be happy." On a clear, cold morning in late December, Tabitha woke to a sharp pain that was unmistakably different from the false labor she'd experienced months before. "It's time," she told Finnian, her voice steady despite her racing heart. What followed were 18 hours of the most challenging work Tabitha had ever undertaken. Mrs. Blackwood arrived quickly, her calm efficiency a balm to Tabitha's nerves. Finnian refused to leave, holding Tabitha's hand through each contraction, wiping her brow and murmuring encouragement. "You're the strongest person I've ever known," he told her as dawn broke on the second day, her labor intensifying. "You can do this, Tabitha. We're almost there." When their daughter finally entered the world with a robust cry, the sun was just cresting the distant mountains, bathing the cabin in golden light. Mrs. Blackwood cleaned the infant and placed her in Tabitha's trembling arms. "She's perfect," Tabitha whispered, tears streaming down her face as she counted tiny fingers and toes. The baby had a shock of dark hair like Thomas, she thought fleetingly, but when the infant opened her eyes, Tabitha gasped. They were a startling, familiar blue. "Finnian, look," she said. Her eyes. He leaned closer, wonder spreading across his face. "Blue like yours." Tabitha touched the baby's cheek gently. "Like she was meant to be yours all along. Many babies are born with blue eyes," Mrs. Blackwood noted practically as she cleaned up. "They might change." "It doesn't matter," Finnian said, his voice thick with emotion as he carefully took the swaddled infant from Tabitha. "She's ours now, our miracle." The baby curled her tiny hand around his finger, and Tabitha saw something break open in Finnian's expression, a dam of grief giving way to overwhelming joy. "What shall we call her?" he asked, not taking his eyes off the tiny face. Tabitha had been considering names for months, but now, seeing Finnian hold their daughter with such reverent love, she knew. "Sarah," she said softly. "Sarah Rose Ryder." Finnian looked up, his eyes glistening. "Are you certain?" "Very certain." "To honor the love you lost and to celebrate the love we've found." He bent down and kissed her, a tender meeting of lips that held the promise of 1,000 more. "It's perfect. She's perfect." As the winter sun climbed higher in the sky, casting diamond-bright reflections off the snow outside, the small family huddled together in the warmth of the cabin a woman once called cursed, a man who had recognized her miracle, and the tiny life that had brought them together. 5 years later, the summer fair in Copper Ridge had grown considerably since the railroad finally connected the town to Tucson. Colorful bunting decorated the main street, and the smell of barbecue and sweet treats filled the air. Children darted between booths, laughing and shouting in the carefree way of the young. Tabitha Ryder balanced her 1-year-old son, Thomas, on her hip as she watched her daughter Sarah spin in circles, her blue calico dress billowing around her. "Mama, Papa's winning," Sarah called, pointing toward the shooting contest at the far end of the fairground. Indeed, Finnian stood with a rifle raised to his shoulder, his stance steady as he aimed at targets that would have challenged even the territory's best marksmen. The crowd cheered as he hit the final, smallest target dead center. "That's my husband," Tabitha told a newcomer standing beside her. "Best shot in the county," the woman smiled. "You must be very proud." "Of his shooting, sure," Tabitha laughed. "But I'm more proud of the ranch he's built, and the father he is to our children." After Finnian won his 5th consecutive shooting title, the prize being a fine leather saddle, the family walked home together along the dusty road leading to their ranch. What had once been Tabitha's small homestead had expanded over the years. Finnian had proven to have a natural talent for raising horses, and their modest breeding operation was gaining recognition throughout the territory. Sarah ran ahead, her dark braids bouncing against her back, occasionally stopping to pick wildflowers that grew alongside the road. Baby Thomas dozed against Finian's chest, secure in his father's strong arms. "Happy?" Finnian asked, his free hand finding Tabitha's. She squeezed his fingers, remembering the frightened, isolated young woman she'd been when he first rode into Copper Ridge. "Completely. Beyond words." He pulled her closer, pressing a kiss to her temple. Who would have thought that following Sheriff Briggs' recommendation to a small town in the middle of nowhere would lead to all this? Providence, Tabitha suggested. Or perhaps just good fortune. "I prefer to think of it as a miracle," Finnian said, his gaze drifting to Sarah, who was now fashioning her wildflowers into a makeshift crown. "The miracle I waited for without even knowing it." As they approached their ranch house, larger now, with a wide porch where they often sat in the evenings, Tabitha reflected on the journey that had brought them here. The whispers of cursed had long since faded, replaced by respect for the Ryder family's hard work and generosity. The very townspeople who had once shunned her now sought her friendship, marveled at her children, and asked Finian's advice on horseflesh. Later that night, with the children asleep and the house quiet under a canopy of stars, Tabitha and Finnian sat on their porch swing, his arm around her shoulders as they gazed out at the silhouettes of their horses in the moonlit pasture. "I was thinking," Finnian said, his voice a low rumble against her ear, "that we might build on another room next spring. The children will need more space as they grow. Or we could add an entire second floor," Tabitha suggested. "Especially if we have more children." Finnian looked down at her, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" Tabitha nodded, taking his hand and placing it over her still flat stomach. "Dr. Martin says late January, most likely." With a laugh of pure joy, Finnian lifted her into his arms and spun her around, right there on the porch. When he set her down, his kiss was tender and reverent. "Another miracle," he whispered against her lips. "One of many," Tabitha agreed, thinking of the path that had led them here from whispers of curses to the blessed reality of their life together. "And there will be many more to come." Under the vast Arizona sky, with the promise of new life once again growing within her, Tabitha knew with absolute certainty that what had once seemed like her greatest shame had become her greatest blessing, leading her to the love that had transformed not just her life, but an entire town's understanding of what truly constitutes a miracle.